So we are now in the big 2025, and I'm going to be starting off the year by talking about every single fighter in the UFC right now that I am personally going to be paying a lot of attention to. These are fighters that I am fans of, obviously, but also prospects that I think could have a massive year. These are guys that are ranked contenders that could have a massive year, and also I do have a pretty sizable list of every fighter that I think is just pure entertainment value and is a fighter that I'm really excited to just watch in 2025. I'm starting off the year with a slideshow video. I believe the legend himself, Bedtime MMA, doesn't use Google Slides, but I'm using Google Slides for this one here. And I might make more slideshow videos in the future because this didn't take long to make. It genuinely took less time for me to make this slideshow than it would have taken me to set it all up on Topology. So I think I might do videos like this quite a bit more in the future. So shout out to Bedtime MMA for coming up with that. If he didn't, I believe he was one of the first. But yeah, looking forward to the big 2025 in MMA. I think I'm going to be uploading more, but I probably will talk about that at the end of the video. I'm going to also try and just be really fast because I've got over 50 fighters to talk about. There's a lot of fighters in the promotion, and there's a lot of fighters that I'm a fan of. So let's now get to it. This is the contenders. This is the guys that are ranked, and if they're not ranked, they're very close to the rankings. Jack Della Maddalena, I think he's going to have a comeback year in 2025. It sounds like by reports of Benny P that he's going to be fighting Leon Edwards in the UK to start off his year. That could be massive. And he is going to be making a comeback because he did have a big injury in 2024 and didn't really fight much. Well, he didn't fight at all at the end of the year. So I am looking forward to seeing JDM come back. Carlos Prates had a massive 2024, and I could see him carrying over that momentum into 2025 just because of his fighting style. He's so fun to watch. He's got so much power. He actually is a pretty tough matchup for a very significant amount of fighters at 170 pounds. And I would just love to see him fight someone like Ian Gary. Like, that would just be a great fight, really. Joe Pyfer, is he a contender? I would argue he's not, but I did put him in the contenders anyway. I think he's going to be ranked very soon. He did have a big step back where he did kind of get exposed a little bit, but then he did get the big win in the first 90 seconds against Marc-Andre Barriol. I think he's going to knock out Calvin Gastelum. He's fighting Calvin Gastelum at 185 pounds in Mexico. I think he's going to upset the party there, and I do think he gets the KO over Gastelum. And then if he does knock out Gastelum, he probably takes that number 15 spot off Mikhail Pereira. Nikita Krylov is going to be gearing up for a big comeback in 2025. I don't think he fought in 2024 at all. He did have a pretty big injury. I think it was a back injury. He got surgery on it at the start of the year. He was meant to return against Azamat Mirzakhanov, but Mirzakhanov, now we know, failed a drug test, so Krylov obviously didn't fight him. Krylov is one of those guys that is probably a lot closer to a title shot than I think a lot of people realize. I could see Krylov getting a pretty massive matchup, like an Alexander Rakic sort of opportunity coming up pretty soon if they were to book him. Tatiana Suarez is literally getting a title shot against Zhang Weili at UFC 312. I think that if anyone's going to beat Zhang Weili, it probably would be Suarez, but I think I am still leaning Zhang Weili at the moment, but just because I think she's a little bit more well-rounded. But Suarez is someone that I'm going to be paying attention to. She sat out for about 3 years with various injuries. Now she's come back. She's just a really good wrestler that is going to present some challenges to Weili. Joshua Van is the number 15 ranked flyweight right now. And if you look at flyweight, you look at Pantoja, you look at who he's beaten. He's beaten Moreno 3 times. He's beaten Kai Kara France once, who's probably going to get the title shot next. He's beaten Brandon Royval twice. I mean, they gave Pantoja Kai Asakura because obviously it was an interesting matchup, but also because Pantoja doesn't really have people to fight. And Joshua Van is probably 2 fights away, genuinely 2 fights away from a title shot if he can beat someone in like the top 12 and then beat someone else in like the top 7. Honestly, I think that you could see Van maybe get a title shot if things go really, really well for him in 2026. I think Van has the opportunity to have a massive 2025. Jose Aldo, I guess you could say he's the contender, you could say he's not, but I have put him in the contenders because he is still ranked, and I think he still is going to get big fights. I think he should fight Dominic Cruz next if Cruz hasn't retired. Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. Maybe Cruz has signed a fight that I don't know about. But I think Aldo is just in general a guy that I'm really looking forward to watch fight, no matter who he's fighting against, unless it is Mario Batista. But anyway, Aldo, I'm always looking forward to seeing Aldo. Diego Lopez made himself very well known over 2024 and also, of course, 2023. He's just made a massive splash over the last year or so, fighting very regularly and also fighting just with a very fun fighting style. I've really enjoyed watching Diego Lopez fight, and I think that he probably is going to get the title shot next against Topuria. He might not, but he did weigh in as the backup. And it kind of does seem to be it's going to be Lopez versus Topuria next, unless, once again, Topuria has a fight booked that I've forgotten about or don't know about. Dan Hooker, I am a big fan of Dan Hooker. I would say he is my favorite fighter. I actually have a lot of Dan Hooker merchandise. I'm from New Zealand, so that kind of cements it really for me. And I'm just really looking forward to seeing how he does, because it does seem like, once again, Dan Hooker has kind of sneakily put himself in a position where he's going to have some big fights. There's rumors that he's going to be fighting against Justin Gaethje. And if that was to happen, that could be like a fight of the year, especially if it's a 3-round fight. I think it was 5 rounds. It would get drawn out a little bit too much. But yeah, Dan Hooker, I think that he's going to just have a fun 2025 if he gets booked against the right fighters. Khamzat Chimaev is he's Chimaev. He's probably the toughest test for Dricus Du Plessis. I am going to make a predicting every champion in 2020 at the end of 2025 video as well. And I think Chimaev probably is going to be a champion if he gets the middleweight title shot. I think he beats DDP, and I think he beats Strickland as well. Chimaev is Chimaev. As long as he stays healthy, he's going to do well. Kayla Harrison, I think Kayla Harrison should be the champion at 135 pounds by the end of the year as well. Juliana Pena currently holds that belt. It seems like Pena doesn't want to fight Harrison, but screw it, just do the fight. Honestly, I think Harrison beats Pena. Natalia Silva is a prospect that I think a lot of other people have their eyes on as well. Very, very good kickboxer, very fast kickboxer. Currently on a bit of a win streak, and I think that she could also have a big year. Kaya Sakura, he made his debut against Alejandro Pantoja. It didn't go that well. He did get choked out in the second round, but he did land like a massive flying knee and a couple of big shots on Pantoja. And ultimately, I am looking at Kaya Sakura to maybe see if he gets a big comeback fight. Like, does he get a comeback fight against Joshua Van, or does he get the veteran and Tim Elliott? I'm just in general, intrigued by how Kaya Sakura is going to look in 2025. Now we can move on to the prospects. These are all of the prospects that personally I've really got my eye on as guys that I think could go undefeated in the year. And if they don't go undefeated, they're going to have a good year. These are guys that could maybe even just jump into the rankings in 2025. And once again, this is just the order of the fighters that I thought of them. Because they're not really any sort of order. Now, Peyton Talbot is a guy that I think the UFC is building up. He's got a massive fight coming up now against Barcelos. But Barcelos is a tough fighter to deal with for anyone, and he's a wrestler, so be interesting to see how Talbot does deal with that stylistic matchup. But in general, Talbot is a guy that really could be a star for the UFC. He did those collaborations with Tony Hawk, which is pretty insane, and he just got that massive, I believe it was in less than 10 seconds knockout over Yanis Gamori. So yeah, Talbot's going to be someone to watch. But Jun Matsumoto is also someone to watch. I think he's like 16-0, 17-0, really good bantamweight as well in his own right. Great boxing, great grappling, just in general, really good. Matsumoto, he's got a couple of massive wins now against wrestlers, so it'll be interesting to see how Matsumoto's going to deal with a striker if he is going to get it in 2025. Felipe Lima is a guy that is actually a bantamweight, but he has been fighting at featherweight so far in the UFC. 2-0 at featherweight, beat Miles Johns at 145 pounds, and he also made the short notice debut, winning over the guy from Tajikistan, whose name has unfortunately slipped my mind, but you guys know who I'm talking about. Felipe Lima, constantly coming forward, constantly shooting takedowns, just a really entertaining grappler, and just a guy that really could honestly make the rankings at some point. Bantamweight's so stacked, maybe not in 2025, but he could be ranked in 2026. Kevin Vallejos hasn't made his UFC debut yet, but just there's a lot of reasons to keep your eye on Vallejos. This guy is really fun. This guy has a lot of beef with Luke Riley, who isn't in the UFC, but probably will be in the UFC soon. I think if they did Vallejos versus Riley, that would be, I guess, like the underground fight of the year, if they were to do it. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but yeah, Kevin Vallejos hasn't made his UFC debut yet, but he is a featherweight boxer that is really fast and just has really good boxing that I'm really looking forward to seeing. Speaking of good boxing, Lorna Kavanagh won his fight at 125 pounds, his debut against the incoming Jose Ochoa, who gave him a lot of problems. But I think still, Lorna Kavanagh can learn a lot more from that fight. Because it went the distance, and he just is a really good prospect. I believe he represents both Ireland and China, so that's quite interesting. So if they were to go to Ireland, he could be on that card. If they go back to China, he could be on that card as well. Kavanagh is a young prospect. It's coming up. He's just good. Louis Garule is a guy that I am like putting so much stock in, and this is really dangerous for me to do because if you guys have followed my channel for the last couple of years when I have covered the Contender Series, whenever I predict a Contender Series fighter to go really, really well in the UFC, they just don't. And there's actually quite a few examples of me being quite egregiously bad at predicting Contender Series guys finding success. But I am putting so much stock in Garule right now. Garule is a pretty older prospect. I think he's like 32 or 33, but he just has an incredible skill set. Really good forward pressure boxing. Really good anti-wrestling. I think he could find a lot of success at 125. Dulatov, everyone's high on Dulatov. This guy is absolutely massive at 170 pounds. He is very aggressive, very aggressive coming forward, throwing down. Mario Pinto is just a really, really technical heavyweight. You don't see this level of technique that much at heavyweight. He didn't look amazing, I will admit, on the Contender Series, but I still think that Pinto is a guy to put some stock in as well. Same as Jacoby Smith, had a massive Contender Series fight. He just looked really good. He dominated his opponent. And I think that Smith is also a guy that could have a big year. Rei Saruya is like a younger, I don't know if he's younger, but he's like a less experienced Tatsuru Taira, where he's just a really young Japanese wrestler who's going to be wanting to shoot for takedowns, just like Rinya Nakamura. But Saruya is more of a grappler, like a BJJ guy. He made a pretty good splash, I thought, by beating Carlos Hernandez, who's a pretty tough guy for anyone. And I think Saruya could be a good prospect to watch out for. Rinya Nakamura, I've been high on since he was on the road to UFC. This guy's got the boxing. He's got the wrestling. Admittedly, his fights in the UFC so far have been really boring. He's just been dominating them with the top control. But at the same time, I think that Rinya Nakamura is a future champion. I do have a lot of stock in him as well right now. Joel Alvarez, he just keeps looking better. The striking's really coming along. I think he just smoked Drakkar Close like only a few weeks ago when he knocked him out and then went for the guillotine, which is pretty crazy. But Alvarez is a massive guy at 155 pounds. He's 6'3", nearly 6'4". He's just huge. Michael Morales, 14-0, 15-0, 16-0 maybe, prospect at welterweight. Looking really good so far, carrying a lot of momentum. And I think that he could also really become like a ranked fighter in 2025. Navajo Sterling is only 6-0. He's only had a few professional fights, but he has been looking so good so far. His fight against Tuko Tokos, I will admit, was a little bit of an underwhelming performance. I think he was expected to knock out Tuko Tokos, and he didn't. But nonetheless, I think that Sterling could find some success at 205 pounds in the UFC. And another fighter in Magomed Gadzhiasilov. This is a guy from Bahrain, and I am higher on Gadzhiasilov than probably anyone else on the planet. I think that this guy has the skill set to go really far. He's got the wrestling, and he's got the technical striking. Gadzhiasilov is a guy that I think really could kind of have more people talking about him in 2025. Now, these are the entertainment fighters. These are fighters that I either just think are going to be really fun, these are fighters that I'm interested in for various reasons, or these are just fighters that I am a fan of in general. Starting off with Andreas Gustafsson. Yes, I thought of Andreas Gustafsson before I thought about Artem Bakatov for this list, but Andreas Gustafsson, I cannot contain my excitement to see his debut against Preston Parsons. That is like, that's my Shaq versus Kobe, I guess. Like that's it for me. I mean, Shaq and Kobe played on the same team. But anyway, That's my Giannis versus LeBron, I guess. It's Gustafsson versus Parsons. That's so sad to say. But anyway, I am really, really looking forward to seeing Gustafsson fight. This guy has no regard for himself. He's got no striking defense. All he does is come forward and throw bombs. He's gonna be so fun in the UFC. I don't know if he's gonna go very far, but he's gonna be so fun. Artem Beketov, I mean, I'm Artem MMA. How could I not support my boy Artem? I have actually talked with Artem Beketov a little bit. He actually does seem to speak some English, unless he's just using a Google Translate. But shout out to Artem Beketov. He beat Alex Pereira in kickboxing relatively recently in 2021. His Contender Series fight was odd because he shot takedowns. It was just a really weird fight, but I'm really looking forward to seeing just how he does in MMA in general and the UFC. He could go well, he could not. We just don't know. Xiao Long, I wasn't that interested in Xiao Long until his most recent fight against Kwang Lei, where he just ran forward and just threw bombs and was just doing this the whole time, asking Kwang Lei to throw down with him. Yeah, that made me a fan. So shout out to Xiao Long from China. I think he could have some fun fights. And you could even book him against Josias Musasa, because Josias Musasa made his debut. Well, he didn't make his debut. He fought in the Contender Series, sorry. And he's very one-dimensional. He really only has boxing. But truly, Josias Musasa at 135 pounds might just have some of the most raw power that I have seen out of anyone. When this guy touches people, he knocks them out, and he just knocks them out like brutally. And you don't see that much at 135. Now, yes, you see KOs all the time, but you don't normally see these one-punch KOs like Josias Musasa has the potential to do. So, depending on the matchups, depends on how Musasa's going to go. Unice Dubin, I mean, she's fun. She threw the massive overhand and knocked out Shannon Clark, made me look like an idiot. But now she is going to be fighting against the girl who Carly Judas versus Dubin, just kind of guaranteed to be a fun fight. I'll be honest. Danilo Velvitkun, former, I believe he's a national kickboxing champion in Ukraine. I wrote him off. I thought he had no chance to win on the Contender Series, and he got a KO and like the sub. Actually, he got a sub I think in 1 minute, so made me look like a right idiot. But in general, I'm just kind of looking forward to seeing how he does. Felipe dos Santos, a lot of you guys seem to give me a lot of trouble for being a fan of Felipe dos Santos, because I don't think you guys understand. I'm a fan of Felipe dos Santos because I think he's fun. I don't think I'm a fan of Felipe dos Santos because I think he's going to become the champion in 6 months. But Dos Santos is so fun. This is a guy that I've been high on for a long time, even before he was in the UFC. When he was fighting for the LFA, his fight against Hugo Paiva, I recommend it every time I have the opportunity to. One of the best fights, in my opinion, like on the regional scene ever, potentially. It's just so good. Biksat Amakan, he made his debut against Umar Nurmagomedov. He knocked down Umar in that first round, and then he did proceed to lose a bunch of fights, but a couple of rounds after that, sorry. He is, I believe, 11-1 as a pro, but if you did include his Nashi Dallo fights, he actually could be 25-0. So, Almakan's a guy to look out for. Jung Young Lee, he fights like the Korean zombie, for better or for worse. In his case against Hyder Emil, it was for the worst. Hyder Emil is just, he's a guy that I've had some really bad reads on. And so far, I'll be honest with you guys, I think I've tried to fade him, and I've just been wrong more than once, but he's just fun. Like, he's really fun. Once again, not that much striking defense, a lot of power, just a fun fighter. Same sort of thing with Tom Nolan. I think Tom Nolan has had quite a few flaws, not really exposed, but yes, I would say they have been exposed, but I still do believe in Tom Nolan's skill set. This is a guy that's 6'3" at 155 pounds, has a lot of power in the hands. He seems to struggle quite a bit with I guess like distance management, and also just being too aggressive, I think is his problem. But I think once he really gets a bit more experience, he's going to be a guy to look out for. Esteban Ridovic is just really fun. He knocked out Terrence McKinney, one of the best knockouts of the year. He's got the potential to do that again. One of the best Contender Series performances of all time, I think, when he smoked Thomas Paul. Billy Goff comes forward, he throws down a lot of fun. Just a ridiculous amount of fun. I would love to see Billy Goff versus Andreas Gustafsson. If that was to happen, that would be the best fight ever. I'm pretty confident it would be. Mansour Abdulmalik is a middleweight that just has a crazy amount of power. This guy does have really good wrestling. He did knock out Dusko Todorovic. I think it was a pretty good performance. I think he's got a lot of things to work on. I do consider him a prospect, but I think that his ceiling is somewhat low unless he can improve the gas tank and just like the striking technique and a couple of other things as well. But yeah, I think Mansour Abdul Malik could be fun to watch. And I've got the Tougher Bros in here. I'm a big Tougher gang fan. I like Justin Tougher. I like Junior Tougher. I don't know, man. I feel like people hate on the Tougher brothers for no reason. And if you do, have you ever seen a boring Justin Tougher fight? Have you ever seen a boring Junior Tougher fight? Aside from when he got just cuddled by Usman's brother. Aside from like these guys don't have boring fights. They're just fun. So that's it for the list. 20-minute video. I guess in 2025, I'm just gonna try and upload more videos. It's kind of a big one, and now that I know that slideshows are not that hard to make, I might be doing a few more of these. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. UFC 311 predictions coming soon. I will not let Angelo get 3 cards ahead of me. That man is a maniac. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one.